Excited to kind of jump in to our next session here. Just a lot of different ways you can go with the hitting. We believe in a lot of, just being able to move and do some things. We believe a lot that each hitter is different and we've got to close the gap with them. I don't like to use the word cloning, but you see a lot of that, I think, nowadays in our game. But we just try to take each individual guy and help them grow and help them get better. Most importantly, really just try to identify some areas that maybe if we can improve this, we'll see the most gains early. This is a daily process. Man, these two guys just do an unbelievable job with our hitters. And I'm going to just turn it over to them and let them talk and give you an idea of just kind of some of the foundations that we use with our hitters. So Tyler Jackson, Tyler Cannon, you guys take it away.
Thanks, Coach. I'd like to thank Tim and the VBCA for this unbelievable opportunity to speak. And hopefully there's a couple things y'all can hear tonight that you can learn from. And again, like Coach said, we're not gurus or anything like that. But it's just like the infield and just like the outfield, trying to develop a routine with all of our guys, their own individual routine. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. I think is so important just to sustain consistency in this game of failure, because that's what it is. It's a game of failure. And if we can continue to have consistency in our routine, in our daily work, day in and day out, I think that's super important in order for us to be consistent players. Yeah, I want to talk a little bit before we get into some of the hitting stuff. I want to talk about some of the things we do with our guys just in terms of functional movements, so to speak. And what I mean by that is having the ability to basically move your lower body independently from your upper body, and how important that is, whether it be body efficiencies or swing efficiencies. You see it all the time with big leaguers. Man, how does that guy hit that ball? How does that guy hit this ball? I need to do this drill because he does that drill. Well, one thing that a lot of people don't understand is that big leaguers, they can move, and they can move extremely well. And I'm not just talking about, they run a fast 60 or anything like that. I'm talking about, body efficiencies, rotational mobility, stability on one leg, because this game's played a lot on one leg. You know what I mean? As pitchers, as a right-handed pitcher, if I'm unstable on that right foot, as I lift my leg, and Coach Williams will talk about this, it's going to be hard to have success. And it's the same thing as a hitter. If I have a leg kick, even if I have a small little leg kick, being able to be stable on that right foot and control my stride as the ball's coming to me is super important. The kinetic chain, creating force in the ground, from the foot, all the way up to the bat. That stuff's important, and it doesn't get talked about enough. And you'll see some of these videos that I'm about to show you, how it can affect your performance. And that's what we're trying to get out of some of our guys. Some of the guys you'll see are super athletic, but they can't move, and this is a rotational sport. You have to be able to move rotationally, and be mobile and have stability, or you're not going to have a lot of success, especially as you move up the ladder, to the collegiate level or the professional level. As the game speeds up, you're eventually going to filter out if you're not able to move efficiently. So let me give you some examples here. So this first exercise here, we've got a raised platform. One's on right knee, and then the left knee is actually on the ground. And basically what we're trying to do is create some rotational mobility. You can see this guy is pretty good, pretty efficient in moving his hips, right? He's kind of cheating a little bit. The left knee's kind of coming out. We kind of want that thing to go straight down and straight up, but that's okay. But you can see the difference between that guy and this guy, right? So he's super limited in his mobility, right? In his hips. And again, these are things that it's not rocket science, right? You can do these in the high school gym. You can do these anywhere, in the weight room. But talking about the kinetic chain, right? Eventually that's going to break down in my swing. I'm not going to create that explosiveness that necessarily I have if I'm limited rotationally. Here we do some things and we'll talk more about these med ball throws, but you can see here, Cam, he's actually, okay, why is he not throwing the med ball hard? Well, he's not throwing the med ball hard because he's trying to stabilize that left foot, right? He's trying to create some separation there between his core, and his left hip, which is super important. Again, when we're talking about being a rotational athlete, being able to swing the bat, throwing the ball, all those things. And we train these things in the weight room. You can see Aaron Anderson pretty good rotationally. He can actually get his belly button over his left and right hip, which is super important. Okay, and like I talked about before, one leg stability. If you don't have stability in one leg in the box or on the mound, it's going to be super difficult to be consistent and have success. So see, these are some of the exercises that our strength coach does with our guys really on a daily basis, to help stabilize on one leg. And you can see we take our shoes off. Again, I don't mean to pick on this freshman, but you can see how weak he is in his ankles and how weak he is stabilizing himself on one leg off the Kaiser machine. Again, these are actually old videos, and this guy does this every single day. Just like he's gotten better on the field, he's gotten a lot better in the weight room as well. So here's another rotation. Again, what are we doing in the weight room functional movement wise that's gonna allow us to be a little bit more consistent on the field? You can see the freshman there struggling again on one leg. So again, these things, it's not rocket science. It's just trying to allow our guys to move more efficiently, especially at this level. I mean, we face guys, we've got over half of our guys on the pitching staff that are 90 plus. We've got 6-7 guys that are 95 plus. We've got to be able to move efficiently in order to have success. It's just the way the game works. The game's too hard. It's already hard enough. And if you're not able to move freely and rotationally, mobility wise, it's going to be tough to have some success. So sorry, I didn't mean to go on a spill about that. Now kind of want to go into some of the things we do from a hitting standpoint. And the three biggest things I would say that we focus on are movement patterns. We'll talk about some mechanical stuff, and then approach is obviously a big part of what we do as well. And again, these are things that we deal with on a daily basis. Okay. We control what we can control. There's not many things that we can control on the baseball field, but we can control what we do in the box, our movement patterns, mechanical wise in our routine work, our approach, all that stuff we can control. All right. Now I want to talk about two of our outfielders. Are actually super athletic kids, and just kind of talk about their swings a little bit and some of the things that we've changed from a movement pattern standpoint and in the weight room as well. You can see Jalen here. You saw some outfield video of him, super athletic in the outfield, but when he has to rotate, he's just not quite as athletic, right? It's just not quite as explosive. And there's a couple things I want to talk about that we've done. It's kind of helped him out, along with Jake here. You can see Jake, a really handsy guy, a transfer 4-year starter, a career 302, 303 hitter. But you can see it's just not quite as explosive as it could be. There's some untapped potential in there that we're trying to get out of him, trying to squeeze out of him just a little bit more. And you can see here, as we slow this down, you can see, so we're talking about a super athletic kid, two of probably our better athletes position player wise. But if you try to get him to rotate his hips, he can't do it. You can see Jake here too, right? He's cheating a little bit, but he can't quite separate his pelvis from his torso. right? Again, here's another exercise that we do. He's trying to get his hands to the sides of his body, right? So we're trying to create some separation between his torso and his pelvis area here. That way he can create a little bit more explosiveness when he rotates with the bat, right? But you can see how stuck and how stiff he is in that area, right? Jake's a little bit better, but again, not quite from a rotational standpoint as good as we'd like it to be, right? Here's one more exercise I want to show you. Again, trying to separate the torso from the pelvis, create some separation. And this is really where his swing and Jake's swing breaks down, is right in this area, the middle part of his body, just because he's so limited mobility-wise in that area. Jake's a little bit better. And these guys have been doing this daily for about a month now. And now I want to show you a couple clips from last week that we've been working with our guys. You can see, so now we've got them on a core velocity belt, right? So basically what the core velocity belt is doing, it's basically pulling him towards the pitcher, okay? We're trying to create just one clean movement to the ball, right? So you can see as his swing, it's a cleaner movement, but it's also got a little bit more explosiveness, and he's not even close to, there's not even close to as much effort in his swing. And a lot of that has to do with he's been able to start opening up the middle part of his body, which is allowing him to really explode and kind of the kinetic chain, so to speak, work from the ground up. And he's actually, you know, from a blast standpoint, we'll talk about that in a minute. But his numbers have actually gone up. Not that that's everything, but it does help us in terms of when we're trying to develop players. It allows us to kind of confirm what we're seeing. All right, here's another one. So another player, a 3-year starter for us, okay? But as he's gotten stronger, he's actually lost some mobility in his ankles. In this video, you can't really see it, but what he has a problem with, you can kind of see if you're just focusing on the lower half, you can kind of see how limited he is ankle mobility wise. And his problem is he wants to swing and come up out of the ground when he swings. And we've tried everything with him, and come to find out he's actually lost some stability in his ankles, which is not really physically allowing him to stay in the ground as he's swinging the bat. So here's kind of some exercises that he does on a daily basis. You can see if it was at a different angle, his knee really is supposed to be over this angled platform, but it's not even close to getting to that point. And again, this is stuff that he does with our strength and conditioning coach on a daily basis. Brett does an unbelievable job getting these guys right, you know, in the weight room. This next one I want to show you, it's a single leg stability exercise, and you'll see how unstable he is doing this single leg stuff on the Kaiser. Like he's falling all over the place, and he has his shoes on. He doesn't even have his shoes off. So again, if we're asking this guy to be consistent in the box, but yet he can't be stable off a Kaiser machine, you know, there's something wrong there. You can see he's actually a pretty good rotator, a lot better than the other two guys. It's more about him kind of staying, kind of helping his stability in his ankles, you know, in order for him to be consistent in the box and kind of stay in the ground, so to speak. Another thing we've been doing with this kid, if you watch his front hip, again, I could go through a slide of all of our guys, but I just want to show you some examples here. You'll be able to see it better from the catcher's view. But if you're watching his front hip, you'll be able to see it in the slow-mo. He really struggles with flying that front hip open. Everything's kind of east and west, so to speak, and his barrel is kind of in and out of the zone. So if you focus on his front hip, the first thing to go is his front hip there. And that's what he does a lot. He rolls over on a ton of ground balls, and it really limits him and his ability to cover, a lot of areas in the strike zone. So something we've been working on with him, and we've tried this with some other guys, and it hasn't quite resonated, but it's resonated with him, is really off the tee work and his routine work, taking that bottom hand off the bat, just to kind of delay that front side just a little bit longer, and allowing that backside to kind of come through and get a little bit more direction and a little bit more north and south, so to speak. And it's actually created a little bit more length in his swing. And then we took it to another level and added just a slight little leg kick to delay that front side. And you can see that ball is actually on the outer third of the plate. He's able to drive it up the middle now versus, rolling over to first base. Again, he's still trying to fight, and it's the daily process. I mean, hitting's tough. I mean, some days you wake up and you forget, sometimes how you held the bat, and it's just the way it is. And you got to continue. That's why the routine is so important, because it allows you to kind of stay consistent and to feel what you did the day before. If you're doing it, every other day or every 3 days with your routine, it's hard to really sustain that feeling and sustain that consistency that you need, on a daily basis. And again, these are all things, like every single player that we have has a different routine. Some guys need movement-based stuff in their routine. Some guys need slight little mechanical fixes. And we take care of all that stuff in the cages. Once we get on the field, it's all about approach. And we'll obviously get to that. TJ, you want anything to add?
Yeah, I think the big thing kind of off of that is, like, when these guys are doing all these drills and stuff, is they have a focus on what their body's doing and trying to control and figure out where the effort is involved in their swing. So for example, like the last guy in the video, Josh, we try to get to where he can feel what part of his body's moving and what's causing the effort of his swing. Is it his front side that he feels the effort, or is it the back side? We try to get him to feel it more in the back side, and the front side not feel anything. And I think that's a big help for him. And some of the guys is being able to feel that and go from there, because at the end of the day, like, we can tell them whatever we want. If they don't understand it and they can't feel it, it doesn't matter. So it's about finding a way to get them to feel it and kind of understand it. And everybody's different. Some guys, you can say, do a leg kick and that'll get it. Some guys think swing down, and like, just whatever it is it takes to get them to feel that body movement is the way to go with it.
Now some of the mechanical stuff. And again, we're not too big on talking about mechanics all the time, especially on the field. We're not going to be one of those coaching staffs that talks about your mechanics every time after one round of BP. That's the game's too tough. You can't do that stuff. Once we get on the field, it's all about approach and execution. The mechanical piece, if there's some slight fixes that need to be made, all that stuff's done in the cages, where we can talk about that stuff and slow things down. And we're fortunate enough to have blast sensors that allow us to see some things, so to speak, that help us really with some of those fixes. And what is blast? Well, basically, it's a sensor that goes on your bat, as you can see on the screen here, on the knob of your bat. And the reason we like that is it's a little bit different, obviously, from TrackMan, where player A, hey, he has a exit velocity of 95 to 100, where player B has an exit velocity of 75 to 80. Okay. Well, what is player A doing that player B isn't doing? Well, that's basically what blast motion allows us to see. Is it's, their rotation acceleration, are they sequencing properly, or, bat speed, Is there something breaking down as they start their swing? There's all kinds of different things. There's about 10 to 12 metrics on there. And we really focus on about 4. From time to time, we'll look at some others. But the 4 that we really focus on the most, and we'll go through these one by one, is the early connection, the plane efficiency, the rotation acceleration, and the attack angle. And again, we implement all this stuff. If there's somebody that needs help, that needs work on the early connection, so to speak, we don't really allow them to see that, but we kind of know what we're looking for and implementing some drills to allow those guys to be a little bit more consistent in the box. And it's all about creating good habits with our routine work where, it allows us to have a little bit more consistent success, once we get on the field. And that's where, the more and more we do it every single day, it just kind of becomes second nature on the field. So blast metrics, so some of the things, the early connection. So if you're not familiar with the early connection metric, basically as you start your downswing, all right, so Mike Trout here, you can see it's basically it measures your body tilt and your vertical bat angle as you start your downswing. So basically you kind of want to be about at a 90-degree angle according to Blast when you start your downswing. You can see major league average is 92.1 degrees. So obviously if just about every major leaguer is around that 90-degree angle, we kind of want to be something close to that. And the reason for that is it just allows you from adjustability standpoint, and it just puts you in a better position to hit, to be able to adjust to basically every pitch in every zone, speeds, all that kind of stuff. And I'm going to show you a little clip here of a kid that doesn't have a very good early connection and what we're trying to do to implement him to get in a better position. As this video slows down here, you can see he's going to have a little bit of barrel tip right there as his foot gets down. So yes, he can cover the ball down, but especially as velo increases, he's actually going to start struggling a little bit more. Anything belt high, he's going to flare or foul off. And I think this is a good example here. You'll be able to see the tip here when his foot gets down from this angle. He just can't quite get to that pitch because he's got to bring his barrel back down in a steeper position that just doesn't allow him to have consistent contact. He barrels that one up, but again, it's kind of it's not really helpful. We're not throwing BP to him, and we tell him that all the time. If you're facing 90-93, you're going to have some problems. So what we kind of did with him, this guy's a big golfer, so trying to create some rhythm. You can see he kind of comes around that one a little bit, trying to create some rhythm where he doesn't quite bring his bat all the way up, just so he can feel some length behind his body. Right. Again, he still is coming around it a little bit. This is really the first day we started doing this to kind of create some feel to kind of get to that 90-degree angle, so to speak. And this is about a week later. It's getting a little bit better, but not quite. We've got some other things we're working on with him, the core velocity belt. But you can see when his foot gets down, it's definitely in a better position than it was a week ago. And he's trying to get our guys, again, as consistent as they can with their routine work, and it changes. It changes. Sometimes it changes in a week. Sometimes it changes in a month. Some things that you feel early in the season, you're not going to feel late in the season. And it's just a constant back and forth of just finding ways and feels to try to stay as consistent as you can. The next one we look at is plane efficiency. So basically the flight of the ball as it's coming into the strike zone, how much length can we create if we're late, if we're on time, or if we're just a tad early, can we create, in our swing plane? And that's basically what plane efficiency is. You know, if we have more length in our swing, obviously, here's a good visual here. We have more length in our swing, obviously we're going to have more room for error. And here's kind of a slow motion clip of one of our guys that has really good plane efficiency. You can see even if he was late on that ball, he hits a double down the left field line. And again, the early connection directly correlates with plane efficiency. So you can see he doesn't have nearly as much barrel tip as the previous kid had, which allows him to adjust to all kinds of different pitches in the strike zone. You can see a former player take a BP with us. Okay, so what do we do to try to help with that plane efficiency? Well, there's a couple things that we like to do. We've got these flat bats where we can either throw the Incrediballs or we could shoot them through a machine, and it gives our guys direct feedback. You know, if we're catching the ball flush, we're on playing with that pitch. If we're coming steep down to the ball, we're not going to be able to catch that ball flush at all. We're going to foul it off here, kind of like Ty does, I believe, on this next pitch. And it gives us direct feedback, right? If we're using a round bat, nope, he barrels that one up. But if we're using a round bat, we may not catch it flush, and we may think we caught it well, but we don't, right? So that's a way, you know, a feel way to give us kind of direct feedback, you know, into what we're trying to do in terms of trying to create length in our swing and get on playing with pitches. Rotation acceleration. So again, we talked about this a little bit. Are we moving properly, right? Are we sequencing properly from the ground up? And basically that's what rotation acceleration measures. You know, how quickly are we getting the top bat speed in the swing plane? And we got to do that with the middle part of our body, really from the ground up. All right. And I'm going to show you some examples of some of the things we do in the weight room to kind of emphasize using the middle part of our body, using our pelvis, our core, to get ourselves in a good position to hit. And again, this comes back. You kind of remember the clip from earlier. This is another clip with our guys, one of our guys that can actually move his hips pretty well. Again, you don't have to have a Kaiser machine. You can have bands. You know, we do all kinds of stuff to try to create some explosiveness in that middle part of our body. A lot of med ball stuff. Again, just trying to create some explosiveness, taking the feet out of it, trying to create some explosiveness in the middle part of our body, which is going to help us obviously from a rotational standpoint in the box when we swing. All right. And we've actually seen, you know, just some of the things like we talked about with Jalen earlier on the just being able to break up, you know, some of that immobility he's got in his torso and his pelvis. He's actually increased quite a bit in his rotation acceleration, also being on the core velocity belt, getting the proper direction that he needs to move efficiently in the box. So again, these numbers, they don't mean everything. We've got some of these guys that have unbelievable numbers with the blast stuff, but they just can't do it, you know, mentally. All right. So again, these are numbers that we look at, but it doesn't mean everything. We've got some other numbers that are a little bit lower, but guys have pretty good numbers at the end of the year and play quite a bit for us. Again, the last one that we really focus on is the attack angle. So basically, an average fastball comes in anywhere from 6 to 9 degrees, 10 degrees, you know, off speed 10 to 14 degrees. So basically what we're trying to do is match the plane of the pitch. All right. So a positive degree is swinging up, a negative degree is swinging down. Right. So basically, if the ball is coming down at a -6 degree angle, we want to try to match that attack angle with a +6 degree angle, if that makes sense. Right. So another way to really focus on that is the flat bat, as you saw, to where if we're not catching that ball flush, we're probably not matching the plane of that pitch, right? And it's really good. It's a lot more realistic when we use the machine and shoot the Incrediballs out. But not everybody has machines. It works on front toss. It works on overhands, whatever you have. But the flat bats, we love the flat bats just because it gives direct feedback to the players. If they're too steep to the ball, if they're swinging too upright or getting underneath balls, they just can't catch that ball flush. And it's a really good indicator of who's kind of on plane or who has the proper attack angle. TJ?
The thing with the attack angle, one way you can work on if you don't have all that stuff is if you're in a cage or something, just put targets at the back of the cage. That'll get your guys to focus more on trying to hit a target and not really worry about your attack angle, but it'll also fix the attack angle piece of your swing.
And the last thing we want to talk about is the approach. And again, this all ties in to everything we do, especially when we come out on the field. And this is the number one thing, especially for freshmen coming in, that guys really seem to lack is the ball strike recognition. I can't stress enough how important ball strike recognition is. If you're a guy that swings at balls and takes strikes, you're not going to have success, especially at the collegiate level. You're just not. And a lot of our guys, and it starts in our routine work. It starts in front toss. It starts with coach pitch, machines, all that kind of stuff. We are on our guys every pitch. The difference between a ball and a strike. And we're fortunate enough to have TrackMan where we can actually go back and, after a fall and look at, our chase rate or our hot and cold zones, so to speak, with all of our players, which really allows us to talk to them about things, pitches, pitch types, all that stuff that they can or cannot handle or what we need to work on. But ball strike recognition, that always shows up. And we pride ourselves, daily on being disciplined hitters in the box. We're not always, if we're facing elite arms, we're not always going to be able to put up 12, 14 hits on the scoreboard, right? But if a really good arm, doesn't quite have that touch or have that secondary pitch or can't seem to find the strike zone, well, at the end of the day, he may be out in the fourth inning, right? And at the end of the game, we probably have more runs than the other team does, right? And that's really the ultimate goal, is to score more runs than the other team. We don't really care too much. We don't even pay attention to batting average. We pay attention to on-base percentage a lot more than batting average, and really pride ourselves of being an opportunistic offense, disciplined hitters, fundamentally sound, small ball if we have to, situational hitting, all that kind of stuff, because that's better than being a hitting team, because the hits aren't always going to show up, especially at this level. They're just not. And another thing we talk about really quite a bit, and we do on a daily basis, is situational hitting. We'll call out situations. You'll be surprised at how many freshmen don't really know, say, for example, if we call out a first and third, one out, what they're looking for, right? So if we've got first and third, one out, or say bases loaded, one out, we're not looking for a ball that we can hit on the ground, right? We're looking for something elevated that we could drive to the outfield, because if we hit the ball on the ground, obviously that's going to be an inning double play. So just trying to, from an approach standpoint, teaching our guys, number one, to be in the game, understand the situation, and understand what the pitcher's trying to do, and then trying to look for a pitch that you can get the job done with based on the situation. And we'll do some one pitch at bats where we may have a group of 5 hitters. It could be off an arm, it could be off a machine, where we'll call out a situation and they get one strike to execute. And we found that really helps our guys. It really seems to kind of narrow their focus. And even if they're struggling, if their swing doesn't feel right, we'll call it a situation, and they're not focused so much on their swing or their mechanics, so to speak. They're focusing on executing the situation, which is obviously huge, and we need to practice that on a daily basis. And the last thing, obviously, we use machines quite a bit. I think it's important that you need to be able to hit a good fastball and hit a good breaking ball, and it really challenges our guys quite a bit, especially some of the freshmen that come in. It really cleans up a lot. You don't really have to talk a whole lot because your body, you're going to put yourself in a good position to hit, especially if that fastball is coming in pretty firm. So, TJ?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that especially the young guys have to understand when they get to college is you have to be able to hit a good fastball. Like if you can't hit a fastball, you're not going to play. Because every pitcher that's out there has a fastball, and if you can't hit it, you're not gonna be in the lineup. So that's number one, is taking away each guy's fastball and going from there. I mean, some days they might have a breaking ball, some days they might, but they'll always have a fastball, and you have to take it away first.
Probably nothing that you guys haven't heard before. But again, just like the infield and the outfield stuff, we take pride in some of the fundamental things that we do, and it allows us to have some success and just continuing to build on, if it's our routine work or our routine ground balls or the stuff that we do fundamentally in the outfield or behind the plate. That's what this game's all about, is just being a consistent player and being the same dude every day you show up. That's what makes a good ball player. And hopefully there's something y'all can take away from this. And feel free to email or, talk to us after with the Q&A.
Hello again. Heading into year 4, the VBCA needs your continued or new support as a member to help us accomplish our mission of uniting, educating, developing, and supporting baseball coaches in Virginia. The VBCA feels that better coaches equal better players equal better people. I hope you'll consider joining or renewing this evening. Thank you.